nobody knows what they're doing. And
Oh,
there are no rules, right? Like the moment you get to that point, it's very freeing.
So freeing. Hi, I'm Cheryl Medeiros.
And I'm Colleen Hungerford. And this is We're Doing This Right, right? A podcast for the whole woman, mind, body, soul, and business.
It's humor infused, as real as it gets, inspiring, and you'll walk away with real usable tools for life and business.
If you love what you're hearing, please share with a friend, subscribe so you'll never miss an episode, and rate and review whenever you listen.
So find your earbuds, lace up your walking shoes, or cozy up with a beverage of your choice. It's time to dig in.
Hi. Danielle doesn't know this. We have a guest today, you guys. Danielle doesn't know this, but I always have to wait like a millisecond because it seems like there's a pause. So, hi guys. How's everybody doing? Are we doing it right?
Man, great to be here. I'm having such a day, you guys.
Oh.
I think we get what we manifest.
I was thinking that when you told me about your car.
Yeah. So Danielle, when you went off and Danielle went off for a second, came back on, and we'll introduce our amazing guest, which we're so excited to have. But I told Cheryl, I'm having quite the day. I have a deal that's falling through. The buyers of our listing are backing out. And then my transmission of my car is broken.
No.
And then I couldn't get my headphones to connect to the Bluetooth. And that was really what pushed me over the edge. But as this frequently happens to me where I've been like, I want a new car. I want a new car. I want a new car. Here we are. Your manifestations, however you want to think about it, works in interesting ways, and you get what you ask for. I will now have to tell my husband that it is not worth paying the whatever to get a new transmission. I should just get a new car.
Happy holidays to you.
It's a great time to buy a new car, by the way.
Yeah. One time my older sister got a flat tire and then got a new car. And I was like, not sure that those numbers math, but okay. You do you, boo.
I mean, it's going to be like $7,500 for a new transmission. So I'm just like.
Sounds like a nice down payment.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Here we are, not talking about cars, but.
If only you were married to a mechanic.
No, but then I wouldn't be able to get a new car. He'd just want to fix it.
Oh,
so
true.
It's a good thing I am not.
He lets me get a new car all the time. Okay. Well, guys, we have Danielle Wilkie here today. Danielle is the co-founder and CEO of The Helm, where she's obsessed with building a new generation for real estate coaches, one woman at a time. Woo! Prior to launching this business, Danielle was an executive officer for Compass Incorporated, a national real estate company, where she launched Coaching at Compass and oversaw an organization of more than 5,000 staff and agents. Outside of work, she's a mom to 2 teenage boys and loves being outdoors in Colorado.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, you two. It's so nice to be here.
We're so glad to see you again. We want you to tell us everything and all the things because we are like beyond excited about what you're doing. And I think, and you'll tell us what you're doing. And I will just preface this by like, this is such an obvious thing to do, but such a needed, and like there was, as you obviously know, there was such a gap in this. And when you talked to us
several months ago,
right? Yeah. And I was like, wow, duh. Like those great ideas that are just like, wow, duh, Tell us what The Helm is. Tell us all about what you're doing and who you are and all of that.
Well, it's so nice to be here with you both. When we met this summer, it felt great. Like our conversation just felt energetic and exciting to me. So I was really looking forward to spending time with you both today. So thanks for having me here. You're so right. The simplest ideas are the most obvious ideas are sometimes the best ones. And this one came from just living it. We were talking earlier, like you just have to live these things. You can't like intellectualize them. They just have to appear for you. You have to just live your life and they show up. And for me, that came when I was at Compass and we were trying to bring more women into this coaching marketplace that we were building, this Coaching at Compass thing. And I was like, wait a minute, where are the ladies? Where are these ladies? They're
Where are
hiding.
they?
And there just weren't a lot at the national level from a coaching perspective. And for a company like Compass, being at a national level was important because you're servicing agents all across the country. It's kind of at a different level. And so I was like, yeah, I want to fix this. I want to go solve this. I've always had a lot of passion around women in entrepreneurship. And so I thought, let's go do something about it. So that's what the Helm is we're out there helping women identify who they want to be coaches, how they can get into it, and then how to be successful as they get going. I have to tell you that I've had some people say, but wait a minute, there's women in coaching, Danielle. I'm like, no, you're right. There are women in coaching, but they generally tend to be either working for a brokerage, feels more comfortable. It feels a little safer. I have a paycheck. It's like a thing.
Yeah.
I feel better. Or they're working for the guys.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you how many incredible women coaches are working for insert big name that you and I
Yeah.
might know.
Yeah.
And they do it because it just feels safer. It feels more comfortable. Because what we realized is we were out talking to these women like, well, why aren't you getting into this? Why aren't you doing this? You have so much to share. And they would say one of three things. I just don't know where to start. There's this like confidence gap. Women only apply to jobs where they meet 100% of the criteria. Men apply when they're 60% met. It's
Yeah.
just this like, who am I? I can't do this. Number two was, I have this really great real estate business. And frankly, these are the women we want in coaching because they have lived it, they have done it, they have built it. That's who you want. And they're like, but I don't want to give up that income stream. So there's
Yeah.
this like false choice, like, oh, I have to give up this other business to do this. And then the third was mind blowing. I just want to give it back for free. The industry's
Oh,
been really good
goodbye.
to me. I'd be like, good Lord, the men don't. Like, you can do both. You can like give it away for free and you can have a business. Like, you really can do both. So I just think a lot of it honestly was just confidence and knowing somebody could help them do it and having supportive people around them to like help them be successful. And so we were like, geez, man, we can solve all those things. Like, we can go and we can figure that out. So I'm thrilled to see what things that you all are up to, what other women are doing. Like, it is growing, and that choice is just good for the industry. Because I do want to say one more thing really fast, which is I've had some conversations with some men that I know in the space, and they're like, not feeling great. Why is this just for women? What's going on here? And I'm like, listen, first of all, I don't think men have a problem. Like that's not the problem for us to solve here. Like clearly there's a lot of guys out there doing this, and I don't think you need this kind of support. So, and two, there are so many great guys who are coaches. So don't get me wrong. There are some great coaches out there who are men. This is not about that. It's not like a men versus women thing. This is
Right.
about just helping women be more on stage. There's more choices. We just need more choices. That's it. You know what I mean?
I agree. And I think what's so interesting is, and I guess I would say, like, one, why do they care? And two, why are their feelings hurt about it? Like, chill out. You know what I mean? Like, I guess that's what I don't
FOMO
understand
is
is
real in real
like,
estate and life. You know this.
yeah, yeah. I'm like, why do you care, bro? Like, what do you care? Like, get out. But the thing is, it's so interesting. So, like, Cheryl and I have been in real estate about the same amount of time.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of, I would say, very candidly, we've had a lot of success in a short period of time
So
in what
amazing.
we've done. And I will tell you that when I look for coaches, and Cheryl and I, we love a coach. We love having a coach, right? Cheryl and I probably each have like 70 coaches.
Right.
But when you go to look for a coach, there wasn't anyone, and I could not identify with so many of the big name coaches that were out there. And even in business, right? Like, apart from real estate, even in business, when you're looking for a coach, there weren't a lot of quote unquote big names or quote unquote whatever you want to, like, coaches or even books. We've talked about this with another guest. There are some, but there are not a lot of women coaches who have written books that we're supposed to read when we're starting our businesses. I don't know how many times on this podcast I brought up the Ed Mylett Power of One More book, and I fucking hate it. Like, he'll never be on our podcast.
He's got one way of saying it all.
Well, it's fine, right? But what Cheryl and I have kind of identified and who we are is, like, when you're talking to high achieving women, you don't need to tell them to do one more. you probably need to tell them to do one less.
Oh my God.
1,000% yes.
What's that, baby? That is so true.
Like, don't tell me to do one more. I've got like, you know, the whole world on my back, plus have to remember to go to my kids' recital and make a snowflake, like whatever. And you're telling me that I should be doing more. And now clearly, but this is a book, and this is not what we're talking about, but it's always right here. And I always pull it up, and it makes me so angry, and I'll keep talking about it till I'm blue in the face, is there is not enough for us. And I think what you're doing is so important.
Colleen, I think we identified your book, The Power of One Less.
I agree.
Yeah,
great title.
That's what
girl.
I'm going to do. That's my book. It's going to be called
Great
The Power
minds.
of One Less. I hate
Fuck
Ed Milet.
you, Ed Milet.
No, I don't. I'm sure he's a very nice man. Don't come for me, people. But also, anybody who loves him is probably not listening to this podcast.
Well,
so I'm
you know what's interesting about what you have to say, I think, is actually a really powerful, deep thing. Like, we're laughing, we're joking, but it's actually really serious in the sense that, like when you had all those teachers in high school and you had that one teacher who was probably teaching exactly the same thing as another teacher, but you heard it through that teacher because that teacher connected with you in some kind of way that was important to you.
Yeah.
And you start looking at this content across real estate, and I know you all are seasoned, you've read it all, you've listened to it all, it's all the same. This is like the dirty secret that nobody wants to talk about. It's all the effing same. And so it's like, well, what matters here? What matters here is who is delivering that and the experience they have lived and how they wrap around it. Because I guarantee you, Ed Milet is saying the same thing as insert 5 other female influencers. But he's saying it in a way that meets the people who want to be like Ed Milet.
Correct.
And so there is so much space for everyone. This leads to my like really big core, and I know you ladies really believe in this too, is abundance. There is room for every woman to sit at this table, and we have been taught that there's only 1 seat or 2 seats, so these women claw at each other's eyes to get to the 1 or 2 seats, and I'm like, no. There's 1,000 seats here. You can all have a seat because the person who wants to work with you and learn from you is so different than the person who wants to work with an Ed. You know what I mean? So there's space.
But I think to your point, you're 100% correct. But I think to your point, like we have been told there aren't any seats at the table for us.
Oh yeah.
So when there's one, we think we have to fight and claw.
Totally.
And it's this story of pull up your own chair. But I think what you're doing is you're just building a new table.
Yeah.
Right?
Just change the rules. Like
there's no
why
rule.
are we having to play that way?
Yeah. And I think that is the biggest, it's funny when you start to really dive into business and you really start to get to like a certain level of in your business or, where you're getting and how you're working on it and you've read all the books and whatever. And I have this conversation with a friend of mine who is now as a restaurateur, right? She transitioned from real estate into restaurants. And yeah, very cool. Nobody knows what they're doing. And there are no rules, right? Like the moment you get to that point, it's very freeing.
So freeing.
Nobody knows what the hell they're doing. But there are coaches that can help you. And I do firmly believe in what you're doing. And I do firmly believe in coaching and I do all of that. But like the biggest secret, the biggest Wizard of Oz peek behind the curtain of, the curtain of Oz is there are processes, there are procedures, there are things that have been successful, but the people who have figured them out didn't know what they were doing when they were doing it. And then they just wrote it down once they figured out what worked, right?
Correct.
Like, I think that's it.
Well, go ahead.
I had this conversation yesterday with someone about how I used to work for someone and like I had to do things their way and how liberating and freeing it was to come out on my own and get to decide what and how I do every single little thing in my business. And I can't ever imagine going back. And exactly to the point, I have got no fucking clue what I'm doing, but I have had success in a short period of time. And people do learn from me and I learn from other people. That's the other thing. It's just like my eyes and ears are constantly open to see the next great idea and rip off and duplicate that. in a way that works for my business and my life.
That's right. That's exactly right. You know, it's interesting to your points. I'll build on it in that I think that when people think about coaching in real estate in particular, they think about like the checklist,
Yes.
the accountability call. Though there's a lot of like skill building and tell me how to do it.
Yeah.
But I think the reason you two likely have been successful is not only because you learned how to do those things. You're like fast learners, you know how to figure things out, you iterate, you make it happen.
Right.
But the people who really succeed are the ones who realize and work on not just the what they're doing, but the how they show up in that doing. And
Yeah.
it's actually when those two things intersect, that's like where the magic happens. So, we don't know each other super well, but I would just gander to guess that like both of you, if you have got 7 coaches apiece, are doing a lot of work on like how you show up in all of this, not what's the right ops process for my transaction coordinator? Like, you know what I mean? I mean, yes, you do that, but that's not where greatness happens. You figure that stuff out and then greatness comes from within.
I think you're like, hello, obviously you should be doing what you're doing because you're like very smart and really in tune, and I think really astute in this conversation. I think one of the things that has been hard, so I'm building a team, right? And one of the things that is very hard to quantify or to make a checklist of or whatever is that, right? Like, how do I teach somebody to be me? They can't be me, right?
Nope.
They can't be me.
Nope.
They have to figure out how to be them and
Yes.
still get the same results that I get, but in the way that works for them. And I think that is hard to coach. That's hard to
That's true coaching. Like coaching in real estate means like it's so funny. Outside of real estate, people have like fights. Actually, this is a really cool inside story. So when we were building Compass Coaching, I was meeting with one of the big name guys, and we were talking about his business and how it works. And he and I had this really long debate about what is training, what is coaching, what is mentoring, and he was super like just dogmatic about it. He was like, this is this and this is this. And I see that outside of real estate too. Like people who are coaches, I'm not a trainer, I am a coach. And this is the difference. And I just have of the mind, I'm of the mind of this. I actually think this, yes, you can be expert as a trainer. Yes, you can be expert as a coach. Yes, you can be a mentor. But what people really want is for you to be all of those things. They don't want to hire 5 trainers and 3 coaches and get a mentor. They just want to work with someone who's going to help them get to the thing that they want to do. There is some pain, there is some outcome, there is some moment that they are trying to reach. And you need to, as a great coach in real estate, mix a little bit of teaching, a little bit of coaching, and a little bit of mentoring, which is exactly what you're talking about with your team. If you show up and you're just teaching, not going to work. You show up and you're just coaching, in my opinion, doesn't work. You have to like know what's happening in these people's lives. You have to know who they are, and you have to figure out how to connect those things. I don't know what you two think about this, but this is one of my favorite topics, what people think about this idea.
Go ahead, Cheryl, because I'll just vomit all over this. Go ahead. Go, Cheryl. I got so much to say.
I think it's not only connecting those things, but it is truly connecting with those individuals you are coaching, if you will, the client. Whatever industry we're in, whatever business we're in, it's the connection to the people that we are serving that makes the difference and makes you successful.
Yeah, that's right.
I just think everything you're saying to me, Danielle, like really is clicking, because I think to your point of like pain points of, well, I've done, like I talk about ninja selling all the time, and ninja selling is a great method. And there's a lot that I've learned from that, and I've read lots of books and I've did this and blah, 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 blah. But I think to your point is, and I think some of us are like this, I think Cheryl and I are very similar in this, is you take what you want from those things. And I think where some of us there are some people who want a path and they want to check it off and they want to know exactly what step to do on each path. And then they want results based on what that checklist says. And I think I want that in my mind. I like, that sounds like a good idea, but I never do that because I get to a point where I'm like, I don't really agree with these parts and that sounds boring and I'm not interested in that. So I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to do this other part from this other thing. And I think when when you can do that and you can synthesize that information and you can process that information and you can pull it together for yourself, that's the people who are probably coaching for you or your training. Those are the people who are successful. Those are the people who are rising up to the next level. But sometimes that's not coachable. Like sometimes that's an innate thing, don't you think?
Yeah, I do. I do. And something that you said really struck a chord for me, which is I've talked to some women who have said, I went through so and so famous insert man's training and it didn't work for me. And instead of feeling like, well, maybe something was wrong with the training or the coaching, it's like something's wrong with me. And I'm like, oh no, 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 no. No. So I'd love to hear you two riff on that one because I'm like, I think there's this idea that like, if I don't do it this way, if it doesn't work for me, if it doesn't feel right, then it's my fault.
Well, and let me give people the secret sauce here. If it is not in alignment with you,
right,
it is not going to work for you. Correct. And what alignment feels like in your body, it's probably maybe different for all of us, or maybe you guys will agree. It's like that energy, that just excitement, like things are just clicking and the cogs are working and it just is smooth and it works. If it's not feeling like that, tweak something, change something, grease the wheel. It should be in alignment and it should be working. And if it's not, that's not the right system or process or coach for you. And that's okay. It's not you.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think to that, I think there is, and I think it really depends on who you're talking to. And I think that's really, it is why this is so individualized. You and I, we can be like, we know that if we've tried it and it's not working. To the point of the one more people, like a different type of person,
right.
They might look at that and say, that's hard. I don't want to try it. Right. Like, I think that there are some people who you have to kind of try it. You have to kind of try it and say like, ew, I tried that and I hated it. And it didn't work for me because it wasn't in alignment with me. But I think there are some people out there, and I don't think there are people, I don't think there are listeners. I don't think, it's a different group of people who won't even try it because they're afraid. Right. And I think that's the difference, Cheryl, is that you and I will be like, we tried that. That sucked. I'm never going to go door knocking again. I hated that. I'm never going to cold call again. I hated that. That didn't feel good to me. That wasn't in alignment with how I want to do my business. But I think there are people who won't even try. And that's the difference.
I think too that the instruction that's been given for a long time has been just very specific in its nature. To your point around door knocking and cold calling, it's been very follow this, do this, football coach, performance. I'm going to call you on Friday and you better have done it. Like that is one way. That's one way to do it, but it is not the only way. And I think sometimes, and this is a generalization, so not true for everyone, but I just think women bring a lot of humility to things. And so there is this self-doubt that can creep in like, well, I'm looking around the room. It seems to be working for everybody else. I guess it is me. And so the idea that you all and the women we're working with at the Helm are bringing alternative ways to find success and be supportive is to me just like such a nice cold glass of water on a hot summer day,
Yeah.
When I was interviewing brokerages to decide where I was going to land, I interviewed with this woman and she says to me, if you do everything that I tell you to do, exactly how I tell you to do it, you're going to have XYZ number of sales in the first XYZ number of time. And I was like, well, I've heard all I need to. I'm fucking out. No interest in following your path. That is not why I went out on my own to start my own business. It was just like follow verbatim what you tell me to do. Right. Cool. It would be nice to have those sales. And it was a little scary making the jump into your own business. Like, where's the business going to come from? That's terrifying. But at the end of the day, I did have the confidence to bet on myself.
Yeah.
And it's worked. And I'm grateful for that. But yeah, follow exactly what I say. The fuck I will. I don't listen to anybody. In fact, I do the opposite.
Oh my God, it's so funny. But what I think is, again, interesting here is that there are people who want that, right? There are people who
Right.
want coaches like
Yes.
that. And I
Yes.
think that's why, to have all of these variations of coaches available is
That's right.
really helpful. And then, it's finding the right fit, the right feel for you. Because you're right, Cheryl. If somebody tells me to do something, there's part of the like high achiever, like honor student kid in me that's like, okay, I'm going to do everything on this checklist. And then there's the entrepreneur, the kind of maverick, if you will, because that's what my group is called, in me that's like, the fuck I will, like that sounds awful. I'm not doing that. And I think it's just finding the right person. Like I am somebody who wants a coach that's very supportive. I want somebody who is a coach that's like, you're doing great, keep going, right? If you're like, you're not working hard enough, I'm like, ugh,
Right. Not going to work.
goodbye. Not going to work for me.
Well, can I ask you two a question? I'm so curious.
Yeah.
I've been asking everybody I know this question because I just went through a process to find a new coach for myself, and it took me about 9 months to find
Wow.
the right person for me. So I want to ask each of you, because you have coaches, you've had coaches, how did you find somebody? How did you know you needed one? How did you find somebody? And how did you decide?
I'm an athlete, so I've always had a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And what I know I want from a coach, I want someone a little bit better than me. Like I want someone,
Yep.
Like I love to sit in Susie Adamson's coaching because
She's amazing.
Susie, she knows more than I do. And she always will. She was always going to know a little bit more than I do. And I chase her because of that. And she can actually help me and show me something. Where I get frustrated is when I sit in a program and I'm like, well, I could have taught this. Like I need the AP version.
Yeah.
That's really hard for me. That's a waste of my time. It's a waste of my money and my energy. And so I need someone a little bit better, a little bit sharper, a little more astute than I am so that I can be chasing that.
That's great. How do you find that person today?
Thankfully I found Susie, but I don't know. I think trial and error. I'm sure that's part of what you did was trial and error.
Yeah.
But are you asking like how do you find it? Like where?
I am because
on what platform?
you and I
or
are
whatever?
exactly like you and I, like to your point, Cheryl, like you know what you need. You know what you're looking for, which is, by the way, one step ahead of most people, I think, honestly. And then you're like, okay, do you start calling your 10 best friends? Do you start Googling? Do you start following people? Like, how do you find? Because I actually think this is part of the problem.
Yeah. I found my coach through social media, but through a recommendation.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I followed a woman who was a stager actually locally. And this is really interesting. So this woman is the coach that I have now is a business coach, not real estate specific, but business. And so I found her because a woman in my sphere, posted a year-end recap. And the thing that she said was, the thing that had the most impact on my business this year was my coach. And I was like, oh, interesting. What? Like, what does that mean? And so then, and I think there are a lot of us that grew up in athletics, and I was an athlete. I worked in athletics for 15 years. That was the world that I came from. So coaching to me was always fine, normal, not natural. And then I checked her out, and then I went to, it was very much like I followed her pipeline exactly how she wanted it to, right? Like she had an event locally. I went to the event, and then I had my call with her. And at first I was like, nah, I'm good. Remember Cheryl, when I left the event, I was like, nah, I'm good. Like, I don't. And so I said to her, I was like, I need the AP version of this. And she basically is what I said to her. I was like, this seems great, but I think I'm already where these people are. Like, I need the next level of this. And she's like, okay, like we can do that, right? I have that available. And it's been really great. But I also think there are definitely like experiences that you have, and then you take from that and then you move on, right? Like I think that those are important experiences to have as well. But like logistically, how I found her was through a recommendation, and then I checked her out on social media, and then I went to an in-person event.
Sounds like how people find great real estate agents.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to take this thought just a little bit further and to use a previous analogy, the build your own table in getting recommendations. Like, I don't need a recommendation from 90% of my sphere.
Nope.
I need a recommendation from the highest achievers in my
Correct.
sphere.
Right.
So to build your own table, Colleen, this is kind of what you and I have done this last year, is by creating this Inspire Her collective group, where now we have this collective of very high achieving women. I want to know who they recommend. I want to know who they're using.
Yeah.
So it's like, build your own table to find the recommendations that you want to get to where you're trying to go.
That's right.
Yeah. And I like, when I heard my coach say coaches have coaches, I was like, who's your coach?
Yeah.
Like, who do you use? Who's your money flow coach? Who's your who's your cash flow coach? And I think that is part of it, right? And I mean, it's hard. I think there's an intricate balance of continuing to strive for more without comparison. And I think that can be
Yep.
really challenging.
Yep.
When you get to I look at my coach, I'm like, how'd you get there? Like, how do I get there? But in growth, there is a comparison.
Yeah.
There
A
is.
little bit is good. A little bit is motivating.
Because you also don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you can't see, right? And we've heard that a lot, right? And we hear that a lot, especially like with women coaches and just women in business. And like, you don't, it's just like, things like the WNBA or Caitlin Clark or all of these things, right? You don't know what you don't see, and you don't know what's possible. So for you to be able to bring successful women coaches to the forefront.
Yep.
And I say this with so much respect to any other woman who is doing this, but without it being cutesy and without it having to be like
Totally
mom based or like I'm a mom entrepreneur, where the fuck that is. Like, I don't see any dad entrepreneurs. Like, what to make it real and to make it feel so genuine and I guess even elevated and like success based, without it being a competition or without it being like, I'm so great, look at me, I'm so fab, like, is so cool. And I'm just so excited for everything that you guys are doing. And
I mean, for us, it's like we need to have a place. The reason the Helm is important to me is because in order for more women to be part of the national conversation and choice around coaching, we have to create spaces for those women to connect. You cannot go at this on your own. I mean, you can, but you two know this based on what you've built with the women you're working with, the way you built your businesses. That's actually not how you accelerate things. You accelerate things by coming together. So like, we're all about like, how do we get more women into this? 50% of them might say, not for me. That's cool. We gave it a try. But the numbers are like, the more women you get into this, the better chance you have of finding the gems. And then for the ones who are like, this is for me, how do we make sure they're all connecting with each other and actually helping build each other's businesses? Because in the end, if you believe there's enough for everyone, that's just like win-win. And two, I don't know about you two, but I am so tired of this idea that there's this like guru who I work with forever and has all the answers. That is not true. It's just not true. You need different people with different solutions at different points in your life. And we need to develop a network of women who are coaching, who can say to their clients authentically and honestly, we are done here. You have done what you need to do. And now I'm going to introduce you to the 3 people that you absolutely must interview for the next thing that you need. And I think just like owning that and being honest about it is just so much better for clients than this like long drawn out years, I need to make a paycheck from my client thing that goes on or has gone on. So I just think, building this community and helping women grow and get smarter is just going to be good for everybody.
It's really nice to hear.
I think that we did a good job just identifying what the problem was. And I want to hear how you've solved it or how you are solving it.
All right. I love this. We're solving it in 3 ways. Well, there's a 4th way, but I can't tell you about it yet because it's going to be a surprise this year.
Like it.
Which I'm really excited about. But the 3 ways that are for the world right now is 1, for women who are just even the smidge interested. They're like, I've always wanted to be a coach. It's been in me. I played sports. I built my own team. I've done this for other people. Like, I've always wanted to do this. we have a program where they can come and just get started with us in 90 days. And our objective in this program is to get these women out the door in the world to test this, to see if it's right for them. Because you two are test and learn people too. Like you could spend thousands and thousands of dollars and years perfecting whatever thing that you think it is. And then you go out in the world and you're like, nah, not for me.
Yeah.
And then you're like, whoa, that was a big mistake. So I think the answer here is like, let's just get women out there. Let's see if this works for them. Let's give it a try and we'll see how it goes. So that's our coaching Kickstarter program. And we're just like, let's just give it a go. And you do this with a cohort of women who are doing it at the same time. And it is led by my co-founder and I, who've built similar businesses, and then 4 of our founding coaches who've also done it. So you're basically surrounded by women who've done it. You're with people who are doing it with you, and we're just going to get you out the door in 90 days. That's the first thing. The second thing is you've been a coach. You've worked with X number of clients. You've been doing it for a year, and you're like, okay, now what? Like, I want to level this up. I want to do something different. And so we have built what we call coaching forums. These are modeled off of YPO forums. If you're familiar with YPO, it's called Young Presidents Organization. It's like EO Entrepreneurs Organization that my co-founder and I were involved in corporate world. And so they're essentially like in the world of real estate masterminds, but we are taking it sort of a different level. And we have a kickoff in person with all of these women that are involved in it. And then we get together on a monthly basis and we're working on our businesses together and we're sharing all the stuff, all the things you were talking about, like who do you refer to this? How do I do this? Like everyone share their things on this. You know how this works. So we're doing that for coaches. And then the third thing we're doing is my co-founder, Heather Frick, and I are really passionate. I've shared this with you too. We're really passionate about conscious leadership. This is sort of our coaching framework and methodology that we use. And we have a certification course for women who are interested in learning about that and integrating that into their coaching businesses. So if they have passion for that, then that's something that we're excited about. And then we have a 4th thing coming next year, but I can't tell you about it yet. But we're just, we're figuring it out. Like you all, what do people need? Adjust, test it, make it better, test it, change it. That's what we're up to solve these problems.
And if somebody comes to you and they're like, somebody like me, if I'm like, hey, Danielle, like I love coaching. That's something that I would really love to do. I've not been in this business too very long. Like I feel like there's an imposter syndrome feeling I'm having about this, right? Where I know I can do it, but I'm concerned. I think in our industry too, like anyway, my question would be like, what do you say to that person? Do you say to that person, just do the 90-day class? Like, do you just say, or do the 90-day jumpstart? Do you say like, hey, no, come back when you've got a little bit more experience? Like, how do you?
Well, if you aren't a coach, like if you're just getting started, part of our Kickstarter program is, and this is so crazy you just said this, because our first sort of thing that we work on together is this. Because my note is that you're never going to be a coach if you can't solve this stuff. So we just go head at it. Like, what are the things that are keeping you playing small? Let's go at the heart of those right away and let's talk about them and shine a light on them and admit them to each other. So as we're going through this program together, I can call you out. I can say, I know exactly what's going on here. This is what's happening for you. And you can be like, oh, yeah, you're right. So we start with that for new coaches. For people who are existing coaches, I think the only way to battle that, honestly, is to be around other women who are doing this work. Because then you realize they all are feeling the same way. And it takes the power out of it when you look around the room. You're like, oh, these people are amazing and they all feel this way. I got this. So those are the 2 ways we deal with it, depending on where you're at.
Colleen, we've talked about this a zillion times where it's like all of a sudden we are in the place where like our friends are the C execs and we know that they are having the same doubts and fears and frustrations that we are. And then it just normalizes it. And it's like exactly what you said. Like nobody knows what the fuck we're doing. We're all just winging it.
But I think, and you know what's interesting is there are women like you and I, Cheryl, who are in this world and we see that a lot. But I still see, even in my coach has we have like a cohort, if you will. Like there's a couple other women and I still see these women saying like, there's no other women like me in my area. Cause she's national. Like there's no other women like me, or I feel like I'm the only one who's experiencing this. And I'm just like, what? Like, 1, who are you hanging out with? And 2, surround yourself with better people. Like this is, or this applies to even just like moms, which is a whole other thing where they're like, I don't feel like I'm doing enough, or I can't keep my house clean or whatever. I'm like, bitch, who are you talking to? Like, no one in this house is clean. Like, and if they are, like, they're not
They're
doing
messy
anything
somewhere
either.
else. They're messy somewhere else.
Yes. So I love that what you're doing is bringing women together to have these conversations. And I think there's, like you said, this abundance, but like also like sometimes I feel like we need to like herd some of these women together and just be like, look, it's not just you. Like Cheryl and I have unrealistic confidence most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like
delusional. Slightly delusional.
It's unreal. Like there's no reason why we should be as confident as we are in what we're doing, but also like, yes, we should. But I just like, I think that there's so many women have been conditioned. So how are you overcoming that? Right. Like, cause there's only going to be, there's going to be some amazing women out there who could be really wonderful coaches, but there are not a lot of women. And I will say this, I don't mean to be weird, but there's not a lot of women like Cheryl and I, right? Who are just like, oh, we've been doing this for 2 years. Oh, we're going to start a podcast and we're going to start a national group of women and we're going to do blah, blah, blah. Because there aren't a lot of women like that. So how are you guys overcoming that and attracting some of these women who do have that great potential, but aren't quite there yet?
They're in their own way still.
Yeah.
Or are we not ready for them yet?
Time. Like there's just like, you can't force anyone to do anything. I think that, there's this equation for change, right? Change is either happens for people when the pain gets so bad that I have to change, and or the vision for what I want becomes too strong. And so while I would love to believe that I somehow could magically like just change this for people, I don't think that's possible. I think people have to come to this on their own. But what we can do, what you two are doing, what we're doing at the Helm, what other women are doing nationally, is you can just leave those breadcrumbs. You just like leave the breadcrumbs for people, because they will pick them up and they will pick them up and they will pick them up. And then eventually they'll be like, hot dang, this is what I'm doing. Like, I'm ready. It's time. And so what are we doing? We are wildly focused on shining a light on as many women as we possibly can. That's where we're focused. So in 2025, what you're going to see from us are some very big names and some very big women doing some very amazing things. And we're going to talk about it all the time, because I think that that's our way of leaving breadcrumbs for people. Like, it's possible,
I had a phone call yesterday with a very dear friend. She and I have sat through the same trainings over and over and over again together. And she called me after yesterday and she said, I don't know what was different, but I finally heard it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the time. It was the timing. It was you are ready for that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. You can't force it. But we can paint a good picture of what it can look like. We can help people along the way. I think that's really important. But I wanted to go back to something that you said earlier that I think is worth just like really doubling down on, which is this idea that people feel like they're the only ones, And you said, well, why do we keep ourselves from how do we overcome this? And I think some of it is, especially in real estate, I see this. I mean, it's true everywhere, but I feel like it's especially in real estate where there's a lot of image.
Yes.
You are your brand. This idea that I can be real with somebody and it won't hurt my business, it won't hurt my brand, is kind of a different level of like fear than what you see in other industries. Like, I come from tech. You wouldn't show any fear or cracks or softness in any way, because you would just get eaten alive in the boardroom.
Yeah.
But here, you don't want to show any cracks or fear, or because you're like, well, people will think I'm not great at my job.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's so important to create these environments, I think in particular here, where you can come and you can feel safe enough and comfortable enough to actually tell it like it is. Because I don't think that feels safe for most people.
I've heard that's actually part of the benefit of our Inspire Her group, because what we're doing there is it's people from every different industry, and they're not with their coworkers. So they're able to come and just authentically show up and not be afraid of being judged or of what they're going to say. And how freeing and liberating that has been to be able to work through issues with other people that like, we don't have any skin in the game. Like, give it to us straight.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things I continue to say in my business, because there is that people want me to predict the future in real estate. They're like, well, would I do better if I waited 3 months? And I just continue to go back to the saying of like, if I had a crystal ball, I would be so much more rich than I am. I'd be so much more successful. But unfortunately, I don't have it. My job here in real estate specifically is to present you with options. And then we can play out different scenarios of how those options could play out. And then you make the decision.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for. And I'm sure there's some of that in coaching too, is I can present the information.
Yep.
And I can present it in all these different ways that maybe you'll hear me. But at the end of the day, it is up to that person, the client, to do the work.
Correct. I was just talking, and you said it, Danielle, and they say it in a lot of different ways, but like it matters who says it. Like you said, there's so many coaches saying the same thing all the time. But I was just talking to my client. I was just talking to my agent, Nicole, who's like on my team, who's new about this, right? Like I'm teaching her, we're having a deal fall apart and X, Y, and Z, and she's like, did we do anything wrong? And I was like, no, we guided our clients. They made a decision. They made a response. They said it. And this is why it's important who said it. We didn't tell them to do this. They said, but to your point, this is a coaching thing throughout any kind of situation. And I think that is really empowering to me to hear if I'm in a situation where I'm like, why would anyone care if I say it? If, saying the same thing, why would somebody listen to me? Who's, if you don't know, he's like a real estate coach, right? Like, or if, what's his name, is like saying something and I'm like, yeah, I would say the same thing. I might say it like this, but it's the same idea. But I'm going to connect with somebody on a totally different level than somebody else. And I think that is really empowering to somebody who wants to work with you or wants to be a coach or to overcome some kind of that stuff or even like build a team, like I'm like, who wants to be on my team? Like, who am I? And it's like, well, somebody's going to want to be on my team and they're going to like me, or who's going to want to work with me? There's a billion realtors out there. Right. But there is enough to connect with the right people.
I think so too. And another thought I had as you were talking was everyone is complaining like, oh, everyone's a coach these days.
Yes.
Everyone's a coach.
Please talk about this.
It's so annoying. It's like how do I even choose? I think it's important that you have to believe that the way you're saying it, the way you're doing it is important here. And you can't try and replicate or be somebody else. And I will say this, for people who are legit coaches who are put a lot of time and energy into this, who aren't just like monetizing an audience or trying to build their downline, I think that it really is. And by the way, I don't have any judgment around that. I'm just saying these are all strategies for what people do. But if you are really committed to coaching in a bigger way, this is good for the world. The more coaches we have in the world, the better, because what you're saying is true. I'm going to take that home to my kids. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take that home to my husband. Right. I'm going to apply it to my business. I'm going to help other people with it. I don't know. I try not to be too cynical about it because for me, it's like, well, isn't that better? Wouldn't you live in a world with people like this in it?
Yeah. I do think though in our industry, you're so right. And I see it all the time. It's like, oh, they've sold $1 million house. Now they're a coach. Right. And there is this mockery of that. There is this snideness of that. And we see it even like in BAM or all that kind of stuff, right? Like the broke agent, like all of that, right? And I think for some people that can be like, oh man, I don't want to be a cliche. Like I want to do that
way.
Yeah, I feel that way. I don't want to be a cliche. Like, oh, look at she, and as confident as I am, those feelings still occur, right? And so I know that that's also got to be happening to other people as well. And
it reminds me of real estate agents. Let's be honest, there are some really not great agents out there, and they give this industry a very bad name, in my opinion. And it is such a tragedy. It breaks my heart every time.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same thing in coaching.
Okay.
There are going to be some that are excellent and are known for it. And I think we all just have to do the best we can to raise that bar. Like when I think about what we're doing at the Helm, we're saying we raise that bar. We only take women into our Kickstarter program who've been in the business for at least 10 years. This is not, and it actually sold things, by the way. These are not part-time agents. I sold one house in 10 years.
Right.
This is I ran a business. I know what it's like. And so I think we just have to raise the bar from a coaching perspective the same way that we're raising the bar from an industry perspective for agents,
Yeah, I think so.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, Danielle, for everybody who just fell completely head over heels in love with you and is interested in what you're doing, how can these people find you and connect with you?
They should definitely go check us out at The Helm, which is THE-HELM.com, the-helm.com. And they can go see more about us there. And they should follow us at our handle on Instagram is at Wisdom from the Helm.
Okay.
And they can follow me too. I share a lot of this stuff. I am Danielle Wilkie on Instagram as well. And I'm also on LinkedIn. You can find me there. So those are the best ways to connect with us.
And who should
in our newsletter? Would you all like put a link to our newsletter? People, it's just
Yes, of course.
every other week, and it's just kick-ass women talking about cool things. So we also have a great newsletter you can sign up for.
Okay, question for you. Who should be connecting with you? Is it women who want to be coaches, or is it women who want coaches, or both?
So we are building the business around helping women become coaches and elevate their coaching business. That's what we're really focused on. But we have some amazing women that we work with that we can connect people to if they're looking for some. So I would say, number one, if you want to be a coach or you want to elevate your coaching business, come find us.
Okay.
Or if you're just looking for a great woman to connect with, we've got some of those too.
Amazing.
Okay, can I give you some rapid fire questions?
Go for it.
I forgot we did this.
One book or podcast that has changed everything for you, personal or professional?
I have so many books and podcasts. I'm sure like you too. This is a really hard question and I need to get a real good answer to this. But I think my favorite podcast that I've been most consistent about is 10% Happier with Dan Harris.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They've got I like that podcast. Okay. I forget what my rapid fire questions are. Perfect day. What's your perfect day?
Peace. Just quiet, peace, get up early, walk outside, spend time with my family, go for a hike, make a great dinner, just peace.
Okay. In your life, what are you most proud of that you've done?
My marriage.
Love that answer.
Yeah, because that shit ain't easy.
It is so hard. I am most proud of my marriage.
That's really good. You know why? My initial thought was my kids. And I think that that's something that a lot of women would say, but I love that answer because man, is that hard.
It's the hardest. We've been in we have a therapist we see every 6 weeks. We started in 2018. So what is that? 5 years, 6, no, more than that. And it's it's been the best thing we ever did.
Okay.
I love it.
What else?
All right. I think that's it. I'm so happy that you're here. Is there any wisdom you want to leave with us that you didn't have a chance to say before we let you go?
A little wisdom from the helm.
Yeah.
My wisdom is actually more of a call to action.
Okay.
I really want women to hear this in real estate. We need your voices. We need your experience. The world needs it. So don't shy away from it. Go for it.
Amazing. That's it. But we don't need to say anything else. Goodbye, everyone.
I know. Danielle,
over.
keep doing it right. Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to share this with the world.
Thanks for having me, ladies. Great to see you.
Thank you.
You too.
That's a wrap. Thank you for joining us on this journey of laughter, life, and growth.
And remember, you're not alone on this path to success. We're right here with you every step of the way.
Please remember to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in today's conversation, we'd be thrilled if you would leave us a review on your favorite platform. Your feedback means the world to us.
And don't forget to share this podcast with your friends, family, and anyone who could use a good laugh and some practical insight into navigating the challenges and triumphs of our minds, body, soul, and business.
Remember, we're doing this right.